Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European crossover webinar. And bear with me. There we go. And we are seeing the euro dollar just a bit stronger. We did make a run up in here yesterday. We were able to go in and finally push above here with the euro dollar. And take a look here. We made that push up here to the 1083 to 38%. We've been looking for that move for 1075. Did go into confluence here with the 38%. We are expecting a bit of a pause here when we take a look at the bunds. The bunds are a bit weaker here, but we have made this run. We think that potentially we'll make it up to 1113 here with the euro dollar. Just going to do a quick overview. British pound still reasonably strong, but pairing back below the 128, dollar CAD weaker. We talked about the 32.36. That's been our resistance area here. We had allowed for that potentially to go higher with the Canadian news, but we have seen this market turn lower. And the Australian dollar did recover a bit here with some Australian data here. And the dollar yen is pressing up against the 109 area. Dollar peso did go on and make it down here. We've been talking about the 1923 area here. That's been the breakout area in the dollar peso, which the market has returned back to and broken below. We had 1916 as our additional support below 1923. We did go and make it down there. We did mention if we do secure a daily close, the door is open for a challenge down here to 1908. We shall see whether that transpires or not. Let's go on and move into the cross rates, and then we'll get into the news and we'll get into the analysis. Okay, we have seen the Euro Kiwi push up a little bit higher, but come in as we've seen the Aussie and the Kiwi strengthen a bit here. Obviously, Aussie yen's also pushing a little bit higher. You can see the pullback here in the Euro Kiwi. The Euro yen has continued to move higher. Now, we did have, I think we had our bias chart resistance. Bear with me. In 2025, we've gone and pushed beyond that area here. There is another level up in here on the euro yen. Up here, 2074. It looked like it was going to stall around this 26 area here, but we made a push up higher. So potentially, I guess we can stretch up here to 2074. Also, the guppy has pared back a little bit compared to the move that we had seen in yesterday, and we got all the way up and challenged the 140 area here. And you can continue to see the weakness here in the bunds, which opens the door for the euro dollar continue to move higher. But we are into an area of support, so potentially we'll see that little bit of a pullback here in the euro. As I mentioned, we are looking for a potential move up here to initial target here at 1113. Crude oil continues to remain weak. We're up here at that key level here at $53. So let's just go and move on to news. We'll get right into the analysis. One moment. Okay, dollar pinned to a near 1 month low on the weak data, and the pound is volatile. The dollar held near a 1 month low against its rivals on Thursday as weak data cast a shadow on the outlook for the U.S. economy in the short term, with the British pound with the only noticeable loser against the greenback on British Brexit nerves. U.S. retails fell for the first time in 7 months in September, while a report from the U.S. Federal Reserve described the economy's progress in cautious terms. This is a report which gives reason to worry about the U.S. outlook, but does not give a reason to panic, says Paul Donovan. Against the basket of its rivals, the dollar was just a whisker above a 1 month low hit overnight weakened to 0.3 to a 1 week low against the Swiss franc. The dollar only managed to eke out some gains against the struggling pound, which gyrated to the progress of last-minute Brexit deal negotiations. The leadership of the Northern Ireland's Unionist Party said it did not support proposed solutions to handling its Irish border checks, major sticking point in negotiations over the terms of the Britain's departure from the bloc. Sterling slid as much as 0.6 against the dollar and shed 0.5% against the euro. The pound has surged some 5% since last week's negotiations between Britain and the European Union. Elsewhere, the Norwegian crown weakened to an all-time low of 18 against the euro. Some analysts blamed the crown's weakness on global trade jitters. And the Australian dollar held near the day's highs against 0.3 against the dollar after the jobs data showed buoyant hiring and lowering chances of monetary easing in November. And the Australian dollar gets reprieve, rate cut pushed out. The Australian dollar hopped higher on Thursday after a solid local jobs data led to investors' term chance of a cut in interest rates. Next month, the future still favored December for a move. The Aussie dollar gained 0.4 to 67.85 and edged away from the week's low of 67.24. That was the 67.25 has been our support, and the New Zealand dollar lagged behind to be flat on the day at 62.88. Thursday's data showed employment rose 14,700 in September, much as expected, while full-time jobs increased by 26,200. That helped the nudge the jobless rate at a tick to 5.2%. Futures market reacted from the trimming the probability of a November rate cut to around 20%. And the RBA has already cut rates 3 times this year. Analysts know the jobs was still some way from the RBA's goal of around 4.5% and leading the indicators of a labor demand. We think this modest decline in unemployment rate will be temporary and emphasize we are still a long ways from the RBA's full employment rate. It does, however, allow the RBA some time to monitor the economy before having to act again. So let's go on. We'll take a look at the analysis, then we'll get straight on into this. One moment. Coming in today, we do have retail sales out of the UK. Coming to the States, building permits and housing starts at 8:30 Eastern, along with the initial jobless claims. Philly Fed business index is at 8:30 Eastern, and Canadian manufacturing sales at 8:30 Eastern, as well as industrial production and capacity utilization. And that'll be it until we roll into the next session with Japanese CPI data. So once again, coming in today, we'll get UK retail sales at the bottom of the hour, building permits in the States at 8:30 Eastern, along with the usual jobless claims. We do have housing starts and Philly Fed business index at 8:30 Eastern, along with Canadian manufacturing sales. And at 9:15, industrial production capacity utilization. Let's go and move in right into the analysis. Hang on. Okay, here, let's take a look here at the euro. Okay, it says the euro broke higher after consolidating and challenging 1083, which is at 38%. Before pausing. Initial upside target remains 1113 before an expected deeper pullback. Support is 1017. So you can see here, as I mentioned, we did go and move into this 1075. We've got the 10 confluence in here with the 1083, which is at 38% of this move from 881 to 1414. We are looking for a move eventually to 1113. Do expect to probably get a little bit of a pause here. Support is going to be 1017, which is this pullback down here to 1020. So bear with me. Before we get there, we do have a little bit of resistance coming in here at 1096 right there. So let's go move this here. It's going to be 1096 on a very short-term basis. Okay, on the cable, cable closed right at the key level of 28.26. 28.26 is the last defense on a 2-hour and daily close for the shorts. As the end of the week comes into play, the market's potential for volatile moves increases exponentially. Resistance is going to be 28.86 with support 27.33 and 26.53. So we're going to have 27.33 as our support. And we're talking about that 28.26 that has held right here is at 28.26. So it held the daily close and the 2-hour close. So shorts still were able to go and defend that. And on the downside, we're looking, as I mentioned here, which is going to be 27.33. On the upside, it's going to be 28.86. Let's go move into the Aussie dollar. So the Aussie dollar was actually on its lows when we came into the employment report. We're pushing up higher. No changes here. Everything still remains the same. Aussie's still in a real poor situation. Look, if you remove this, there's no change. You see what I'm saying? We're still weak. We're just above the resistance. So I'm going to remove this. This really doesn't make any difference because it gives a perception that we're moving higher, and we haven't really done anything here. Okay, this is still within the same ranges. We need to get above 68.09. We haven't been able to do that. We did hold above the 67.25. So there's no changes here with the Aussie at this point. Still remains bearish. Needs to get above 68.09 just to barely start to even give any thoughts of just a minor short covering rally. So not that we can't, but right now this is still bearish and there are no changes. Looking at the Kiwi, it's the same thing. There's no changes here in the Kiwi. Just a little bit weaker looking than, hang on, I got to turn off the squawk. This thing's driving me crazy. Okay. But you can see here that no changes here in the Kiwi. No changes whatsoever. So the data still remains the same. Okay. So it really, honestly, with the exception of the euro, I guess I have to say the euro, the cable, the yen, and the peso, there's no changes really. Not really, realistically. So everything's pretty much still the same. Speaking of which, we're going to move into the dollar CAD. As I mentioned, not really any changes. Look, we came up, we had 32.36, and that actually has held this market in check almost to the pip. We did allow, in case with Canadian dollar, that we could move higher up into 32.74. That didn't come to fruition, and we've just rotated lower. So this 32.36 is held like a champ. So, you know, coming into today, that's still going to be right here. We'll just go in and pull this back for 32.36. And so we, obviously, if we see some dramatic move because of Canadian data, we haven't seen it that far so far. And on the downside, 31.80, no changes. We can move a little bit lower here, but we're going to keep things relatively tight. There's actually the doors up a little bit lower to move here, potentially down to, we'll go and take a look here. We had it down to 31.51. If it takes it, now we are rotated lower, so we'll actually go in and push this a little bit lower as the market continues weaker here. But as I mentioned, overall, with the exception of the euro, the cable, obviously the yen's pushing a little bit higher, and the peso, everything is pretty much still the same. There's really not been any real changes in here in FX. We're going to move in now to this peso. So the peso remains weak. I'm not going to go into the details. We've already gone over this ad nauseum over the last week as to the way this technical picture is. But we said that, you know, the market would get down to 1923.6. That would offer some support with the additional level at 1916. But we did mention that if we got a daily close below the 1923.6, it opened the door for a move down to 1908. So that's potentially what the market can go to. Excuse me. Can go there down to 1908 potentially. We are holding here, so it's 1916. So 1933 is going to be the resistance for now, and on the downside, at 1916.08. So that's what we're looking potentially get down there. 08's a little bit of a drop from here if you think about it, but that's what we're coming right across there, right there. But we can go and make it down there if they go and hit some more stops here. So, and with that, we'll go and move into the dollar yen. And the dollar yen, everything still remains the same. We're looking at 908 with potentially the pivot at 29.27. Here's that big pivot. And the downside, 839. Like I said, as long as the spoos remain up here close to 3,000, the dollar yen could be a whole lot higher. It's not. So once again, like I said, we've gone and made that move up here. This is the big pivot. It'd be huge if we would get beyond that. I don't think we are, but this market could gun some stops up here to 927. So it's still going to be 908 with 927, and obviously we've got a daily close above that. You really push this market higher. But once again, like I said, we could be even a lot higher when you consider where equities are, and we're still holding, you know, below this pivot. Actually, haven't even marked the 908 yet at this point. And on the downside, as I mentioned before, is going to be 839. Okay, well, the dollar index did get to what we were looking for, which was 97.89. I've been talking about that level And we did get to that yesterday here at the 97.89. So this is what we're looking at. Now, potentially, can we go further? Is going to be 97.57. But this 97.89 is key. We'll see what the market can do here. Going in down here at the 97.89. This is if we can stretch even beyond there, but I think this is not for now. I think we're going to go on hold against this 89, but potentially how far we could eventually get to. And then on the upside, we'll take a look at this. For now, resistance is going to be right here at 98.24. 98.24 here on the, we can actually push this a bit higher. We'll call it actually here right at 98, 98.28, 98.28. As I mentioned, we do have data at the bottom of the hour. UK data. It's going to be retail sales at the bottom of the hour. With that, we're going to go on and move on right now to the cross rates. So we have our resistance here, 68.52. We're actually above that at 68.70. As obviously the Kiwi strengthens a bit here. We're actually just going to move this just a bit higher there. I'm not expecting a whole lot, but we shall see, which is right here. 68.77. 68.77. Okay, and support will be right there, 68.12. This market's still got a long ways to go, but a very short-term basis is going to be 68.12. Okay, taking a look here with the euro yen. Obviously, we're pushing a little bit higher. I thought we might kind of run out of gas there at 2012 or 2025, but are making this push here, and this is the next level of resistance here at 2074. I mean, with the weakness, a little bit of weakness we're seeing with the yen, I'm not expecting a whole lot, but whether or not we can get pushed in here. So let's look here at 2074. Bear with me. Yeah, one moment. And let's go and take a look at the support here. At 1986. With that, let's go and take a look here at the euro one. Now we got above yesterday, above the 63.41, and now we're actually losing it now. So let's go and take a look at it here on the 2-hour chart. And the resistance is actually going to be just above that, which is going to be 63.58. Let's take a look here. We are having a look at that tough time with that 63.41. And that's the main daily level. So let's go with that 63.41. Obviously, with the Aussie strengthening here. And on the pullback, initial support is going to come in right there at 62.52. But coming off of these highs right there, let's go to 62.69. What we're going to do is we'll move into the cable real quick for the retail sales data. Let's just pop in there. Came in flat on the retail sales month on month, and not really much of a reaction here in cable. Not much of a reaction at all. But that 28.26 is holding here. You can see that 28.26 holding up like a champ. Let's go and move back into the cross rates. And with that, let's go into the Euro QE. Kind of a mixed move in here with this Euro Kiwi, but we have seen the Kiwi and the Aussie come back a bit. Henceforth, this pullback, we're looking into support. Right there. And we may even ultimately push a little bit lower here to test this area. So it's actually going to be right here. It's going to be 74.64. I've already come off quite a bit here, but I think we're going to push lower, but at least for now, let's go right there. 74.88. 74.88. And resistance will be right there, 76.28. LCM back to challenging the 74.02. And until it takes it out, which is pretty close to doing it, until it takes it out, it hasn't. So we're just going to stick with that. There's a little bit of a push beyond here at 74.26. I'll tell you what, we're actually going to move it to 74.26 in the sense that if they want to clock the stops. So it's going to be right there. $74.24. See if they pop these stops. And support's right where they're breaking out here. 72.96. Let's call it 72.97. But they may want to push these stops up here and make it appear to 74.26. With that, we'll go and move into the guppy. We've challenged that 140 and we're kind of struggling up in here. We've already had a great move here in the cable. Well, I mean the guppy, but obviously the Brexit headlines is what's going to move this market. We can take a little bit closer look on the 2 hour. And for now, there's your resistance, 39.65. 39.65 here. Actually, it's even trying to struggle right there. We'll work a little lower, right there, 39.50. Support will be 37.72. It's a pretty phenomenal move we already have, but I mean, it's just these markets are moving on these Brexit headlines, and obviously, if they get a deal done, we can potentially even push even much higher. So, if you're trading this, basically, it's just level to level, and some of these levels have been a bit extreme, to say the least. We've even challenged this 140. We've come off a decent amount, but against this 140. But sometimes when you're looking at this, let's say a cable, it's actually some of the cross rates that are giving a better idea, because you can see here we tagged that 140 and we started to finally pair back, and pair back we have. But once again, this is where some of these moves have just been unbelievable. If you look here from, look at this just from, what is it, like the ninth of the month here. Look at this. You're looking 10, nearly 10 big figs, actually 9 big figs. I mean, this is huge, 9 figs. We're going to move into the sterling odd. You can see we had a medium-legged doji here. With a medium-legged doji, bulls don't have control, bears don't have control. You usually see the market pair back. Obviously, once again, we're going to be, suspect to headlines. We're pairing back here. But we do know that the Aussie has come alive since the employment data. So how much we're going to pair back, we'll take a look at that on the 2-hour chart. I think potentially we can easily make it down here, which is going to be 87.34. This is probably, although we did see the data weekend, but look at this. Look at these gravestone dojis right here. And then we see this market pair back. This offered actually a pretty good setup as compared to the cable. Although, like I said, the market stayed quiet, and you'd been taking a chance if we had cable come in with a much lower employment number. And but like I said, potentially we can pair back down here to 87.34. Upside, I think, is going to be rather limited. Probably set it up right here, 89.45, and actually might even be lower than that with the strength of the Aussie. If we get once again, it's all dependent on the headline. Right now, with the strength of the Aussie, I'd say they have a tough time trying to even get beyond this, which is 89.06. We'll go with 89.06. Anything beyond here is just going to be how these headlines clock in. Giving it a little bit of leeway here. It's actually right there, 89.48. But the strength of the Aussie is going to keep a bit of a lid on this. We'll just go and quickly move into the other markets. As I said here, with the S&Ps higher, it certainly gives the dollar yen, which is actually on its highs right now at 8.87, gives it that extra boost here. Euro dollar on its highs at 10.88, trying to work higher. Bunds, well, this is giving the euro a little bit of a lift too, because the bunds are breaking a little bit lower. Not breaking, but they are testing these lows here. Crude, we have not been able to get a move higher here in this crude. They've continued to stay weaker here, despite the overall sell we saw here. We just can't get much of a bid here. But yesterday we were just kind of going back and forth, and really no sense of a real direction that we could see here in the crude oil. Gold came back, and then we dipped here. Did a little bit of sign, came back here with the gold. We did go on and finally push up a little bit higher, not to any great result, but we did push hard and come off of those lows. As a dollar weekend, we're kind of sliding back, but it's been in some sense a little bit quiet. Other than the fall we saw yesterday, a little bit of rally back, but and since the Asian session, this market has stayed relatively quiet here. As I said, crude oil's kind of been with a definite downside bias here, having a tough time rallying. And then we're looking at U.S. rates. We're pressing up here against 175 here. Let's go get rid of this. But you can see here with Blends pushing a little bit lower here, moving to new lows, which is actually allowing the Eurodollar move higher. And we are looking at 1096 here on a short-term basis here with the Euro. And we'll just wrap up here with the majors. Dollar index pushing down here against that 97.89 again here. You see here, potentially we could get down to 97.57, but that'd have to, I think, that in order for us to go that route, you'd have to see this 11.13, which is where I think the euro can eventually stretch to. But it's really that the bonds with new lows are actually providing that. And obviously with the dollar CAD here, we could not get past that 32.36. I think the high was like 32.39, maybe 32.40. And that's kept it in check, and we're rotating lower for potentially for a move to 31.51. Look at the cable. We're pushing back up again here, and we're up against this 28.26. Keep an eye on the cross rates. They'll give you a good indication of what's happening here with cable. They give a better indication of where the market is than actually the cable in and of itself. I mean, at least it gives a guide as to what the cable can do. But we've seen these bigger moves early in the morning into the early U.S. session, and it's in the latter part of the U.S. session that you see the market kind of peter itself out. But that might be as the news day starts to wind down. Peso's still on the backdrop here, and dollar yen, as I mentioned, resistance is 908 with the big pivot at 927. Here, we'll move back here. And there we are here with 908 with 927 here on the pivot. And that's what we have for today. Good luck trading, and thanks for joining us on the European crossover webinar. We'll see you in the FX Daily wrap up at 12:30 Eastern.